given the circumstances. Also tonight, we're learning of what would be an alarming escalation. Senior Czech defense officials are telling the Washington Examiner that Russia might target the convoys of weapons headed to Ukraine. Czech Deputy Defense Minister Tomáš Kopiecny adding the consequences of launching a military attack on NATO territory are quite clear. Well, that's an understatement. Joining me now is John Ratclife, former Trump Director of National Intel. John, good to see you tonight. Now, I realize the desire to get, help to the Ukrainian people. But do you think the U.S. officials have really gamed out what happens if those NATO convoys are in turn attacked?
Well, I think what we're seeing is, this is now day 7 of what most experts thought, including in our Pentagon, was going to be a 2 or 3 day invasion. And, while that speaks to the courage of the Ukrainian people, it also speaks to the fact that, Vladimir Putin miscalculated. He thought that conventional missile strikes and cruise missile strikes on command and control centers combined with his armored forces would lead to a quick victory, and that hasn't happened. And that's good news for the Ukrainians, but the bad news is we've seen what happens before when the Russians get bogged down and Putin gets more desperate. What he did in Syria with saving Bashar al-Assad was to do what he's starting to do now, which is a siege mentality around cities where he literally has decided it's better to level entire neighborhoods, including civilians, rather than risk any more Russian lives. And that's what you're seeing in Kyiv and Kharkiv right now. And it also speaks to, the fact that he has already warned that he does not want NATO interfering in this. And so, we need to be careful about escalating this. But Laura, it really underscores why this was such a bad strategy from the Biden administration, the if-then strategy. If Russia invades, then we'll do something about it. Then we'll help Ukraine. All of these supplies and all of the weaponry and all of the things that we sent in the Trump administration, like javelins and stingers and sniper rifles and all the things that the Russians need, they should have been there a long, long time ago instead of the strategy that now leaves them on the outside looking in.
Well, here's the former NATO ambassador, John, under Obama. He was on MSNBC today on what he expects next.
I do expect to be more brutal. Look, we should appreciate that we're in the very early days, just a few days into this, and we should expect this to be a long, protracted, brutal campaign. If given the choice, Putin will double down before he backs down.
John, realistically speaking, now that Russia is there, that Biden has said, we're not going to fight Russian troops, we're not going to send boots on the ground, what realistically can the U.S. do to push Vladimir Putin out if we're going to keep buying oil from Putin and if we're going to keep supporting China, which is backdooring a lot of support? Obviously,
if you take out the options if you take out the options that would have worked, the double whammy of the sanction that was the double whammy, which is actually sanctioning Russia's oil supply and increasing U.S. oil production, none of the other sanctions are going to work in a timely manner to help Ukraine. It is going to get worse. Putin has not yet deployed. He's got 300 modern strike fighters, Su-30s, 34s, 35s. He's going to use those, use air-to-ground missiles to target Kyiv and Kharkiv and other cities, and then he's going to carpet bomb. That's what he did in Georgia. That's what he did in Syria. That's what he's going to do here. And unfortunately, at this point, it's a matter of time if the Biden administration isn't going to do the things that were really necessary to help the Ukrainian people. We're just going to have a front row seat to the horrors of war. And it will be a front row seat because unlike Syria, the world press is watching this. So I think the American people, unfortunately, are going to see the horrors of war up close.
Yeah,
and I think it'll really underscore the Biden failed strategy here.
Well, John, America had to watch as Hungary was rolled over, as Czech Republic was rolled over, as Hong Kong's security was completely destroyed by China. We are not the global power that we were at the end of the Cold War, at the very least. I mean, we won the Cold War, and then we gave up the victory by empowering China. So every time someone says Russia, I say China. Okay, then how are we going to cut off the support to Vladimir Putin in the East from China? And we're not going to. We are not willing to do that, period.
We're not. And in fact, that's why, in a State of the Union address, you saw Joe Biden spend 15 seconds, a passing reference to China, our greatest national security threat, and why, from the intelligence community standpoint, there's concern here, Laura. Joe Biden instructed our intelligence community to share our intelligence of Putin's invasion plans of Ukraine with China, naively thinking that China might help us stop Putin, and instead they did exactly what everyone knew they would. They shared that information with Putin, and not only that, they told Putin, look, we know you're going to invade Ukraine. We just ask that you hold off until after the Olympics. And that's been confirmed by our intelligence sources. And again, it just underscores that China is not a strategic competitor. They are the adversary that wants to get rid of us as the world superpower.
Yeah, the Belt and Road Initiative, the belt to tighten around our necks. Now, today Biden echoed that one line, John, that he made in his speech last night about President Xi. Watch.
I am truly more optimistic about America today than I've ever been. I really mean it. We're on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century that we face with the rest of the world. I told Xi Jinping, who I'm told I've met with more than any other world leader, that it's never been a good bet to bet against the American people.
John, that's a nice line, but it doesn't make a policy, and none of us would bet against America either, but sadly, I'd bet against Joe Biden.
Yeah, like I said, there's confusion in the intelligence community about the approach that he wants to take, because he uses those lines, but then, very clearly China, if anyone was under any delusion that China and Russia aren't working hand in glove against the United States, this episode regarding the fact that China shared our intelligence with Russia on our intelligence about his invasion plans with Putin really underscores the point and shows the naive approach that we're taking with what is our greatest national security threat. It's really inexplicable, and it does not portend well for the next 3 years. We've been slapped around by China already. Their diplomats have come to U.S. soil. Early in this administration, they are engaged against Taiwan in a way that they never have in the air defense identification zone, and Biden does nothing about it. And again, our fear is what's going to happen in the next 3 years, given the weakness that keeps getting projected against autocratic dictators.
You're right. Now, it would be nice if we heard from some senators on Capitol Hill about this, some Republican senators in leadership who's sorry but spend more time covering for China than actually discussing the Chinese threat, and they know who they are. But we've got to get really serious. This is the whole future of the country. This is not just Ukraine. This is all of America that's on the line with this East versus West struggle. And we seem to be worried about, globalization and trade and keeping, investment banks happy in the U.S. Senate. But we better get real fast, or throw these bums out and get some new people in. I'm fed up with this. Half of the GOP leadership at this point on the China issue. John, you didn't need to hear that, but I appreciate you joining us. Thank you, letting me rant. All right.